Well, hello. I just had a bath, and I thought since I've been gone for 2 days, I'm trying to make it up to you. So I thought we would go through the second bag of books that I had. Remember when we did the video of first chapters? And I said I have more. So let's just do a little video of first chapters. And I mean, these videos are for a couple reasons. It's to... What did you just knock off? Knocking candles off the coffee table. Okay. Timmy, of course. All right. So for two reasons, they are to see what we might want to read next together, but also if something catches your interest, you can go out and pick it up from your library or go buy it, whatever you want to do. It's just to sort of make us aware of other books out there, either to read together or on our own. I should be drinking water, but this Sprite and ice, it's like a Sprite plus iced tea. I'm hooked. Okay, so I thought I would treat myself. Now, Timmy has done a number on this one. Bugger. So, I thought I would read a chapter from this too, because it's about Mary Ann Disraeli, the wife of apparently Queen Victoria's favorite prime minister. So what are you into? Okay. We'll keep going. We might even do a chapter of this. I have A Voyage Around the Queen. I have 99 Glimpses of Princess Margaret. I have a biography of Prince Charles, as was. I do have the Tupac biography. And Alex and Nikki. Not sure what else is in here. We'll just make our way through. All right. This is on the top of the pile. Let's just start here. We'll see how long. Oh, Timothy, I wish you would go have a nap. All right. All right, let's read the foreword. Why am I writing this book? Again, this is my story by Leslie Player, who was the mistress of Sarah Ferguson's father in the 90s. Hey, this was published in 93. This is wild. Okay. The dedication. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and that's Desiderata. Am I saying that right? This is to set the record straight. Leslie Player, 1993. That's bold. She's quoting herself. That's a little strange. To my best friends in my life whom I love, and to God who loves me, who forgives and empowers me, and never betrayed me. I'm sorry. That's true. God does forgive. I just find it really interesting when people do something that society is like, shame, and then they're like, God forgives me. It's like, yeah, of course God forgives you, of course. And are we supposed to follow that example and forgive you too? Yes, but I find it funny when there's like no hint of humility. It's like, God forgives me. However, let's find out. Oh Lord. She says early days. I hope it's not her childhood. I don't want to go that far back. Okay, let's just read the foreword. Why am I writing this book? Quite simply to clear my name. I am standing on the wooden patio of a small beach house on the outskirts of Cape Town, staring out at the restless sea. This is close to the spot where two great oceans meet, and where you can actually see the murky waters of the South Atlantic to the west link up with the clear blue of the Indian Ocean to the east, the two kept apart by some magic dividing line. My friend Diana, who kindly loaned me the use of her home when I fled from the turmoil of London, is away for a month, so I can collect my thoughts and make my decision. Only a few months ago, the idea of writing a book that might cause hurt to other people would have been completely alien to me. But the revelation of my affair with Major Ronald Ferguson and the accusations of my having defrauded a charity and posed at being a lady-in-waiting to the Duchess of York have all but ruined me, losing me my home, my health, 2 businesses, and almost my sanity. Branded as a scarlet woman, I became a social outcast in the rarefied world of polo and the glamorous society figures who move within it. The reality is, of course, that I had an affair with the Major, and, by denying it when so many within royal circles and elsewhere knew it to be true, I only made things worse. The official itinerary for the royal tour of Palm Beach listed me as Sarah's lady-in-waiting. With one call, instead of an unwarranted denial, she could so easily have put matters right, as the charity commissioners did to exonerate me completely from any misconduct. I thought I had found true friends in Sarah and her father after they had welcomed me so warmly on numerous occasions to Sunninghill Park House, the home of the Duke and Duchess of York. I was wrong. When I needed them, at the lowest time in my life, they turned their backs. I was tried and sentenced by the press, with no opportunity of defense, until now. All I ever wanted on the day I met Major Ronald Ferguson was to organize a polo tournament and to rebuild my life after separating from my husband. Instead, I found myself pursued obsessively by a man nearly twice my age and caught up in the web of intrigue and deceit that surrounded the fall of the House of York. In writing a book to describe what really happened, I can at least offer an explanation to those willing to give me a fair hearing. One thing it will not do is put any further clouds on the horizons of the real royal family who do so much for this country. But now, here is the truth behind the headlines. My diaries show the date, the place, and the time of where it all began. Friday, 9 November 1990, the Royal County of Berkshire Polo Club, Ascot, noon. I had arrived promptly on time, not a minute early, not a minute late. That way, they had told me at my business psychology courses, nobody can prejudge you before you've even started a meeting. Through the windows of the secretary's office, I could see the sleek outlines of my silver spur Rolls-Royce parked in the drive. I'm loving this. The jet black limousine had brought faces to the windows of the clubhouse as I drove up to the main entrance for the encounter that would change my life. I was used to questioning looks. Just who is this petite young woman in a smart navy blue Chanel suit walking briskly through the hallowed portals of one of the world's most exclusive establishment male bastions? A place where wealth, prestige, and power preside, and where you are judged by your skill in the saddle. As you wield a 4-foot bamboo mallet in passionate pursuit of a hard white ball the size of a small cantaloupe melon. Smooth green fields of conflict. 6 of them, guarded by lines of hefty oak trees, stretched away to the misty ramparts of Windsor Castle. Beyond a handful of BMWs, Porsches, and Range Rovers parked near the goalposts, a Sikorsky helicopter squatted on its pad like a giant insect. Inside this inner sanctum, that has been described as England's ritziest polo club, I was nervous as a kitten, but refused to show it. I sat in a comfortable chair opposite the big desk and tried to radiate the confidence of someone about to make the club an offer it couldn't possibly refuse. At least the office was reassuringly untidy. The desks piled high with papers and programs, ballpoint pens and paper clips, and filled with the sounds of phones that never seemed to stop ringing. Assistants popped in and out, and the atmosphere was positively crackling with energy. As a businesswoman who had been dealing with the very top strata of industrialists and banks, I knew what the sweet smell of success was all about, and this was a heady scent indeed. The door opened again, and a very tall, strongly built man with rugged features and bushy eyebrows walked in. He marched up to me without a pause and stuck out his hand. His voice boomed out. "Hello, you must be Miss Player. Let me introduce myself. I'm Major Ferguson. Just what can we do for you?" Guys, I like this. We have to read this. Because it's so... I'm not trying to be mean. You know, I try my best not to be ugly. But it sounds so privileged, does it not? I can hear the privilege dripping out of the pages. And I think this would be a fun little read, just to read it, you know, just to be a little facetious. All right, I really wanted to keep going, but I have to stop and I have to move on to the next one. All right, let's do 99 Glimpses of Princess Margaret, just because it's the next one on my pile. Now, one of our book club members said that she has read it and she was kind of disappointed by it, but she graciously said she would give it another chance if we decided to read it again. So let's have a little look-see. So there's 3 quotes in the beginning before the first little chapter. My dreams watching me said, one to the other, this life has let us down. Paul Potts. Paul Potts. I haven't heard of Paul Potts in a dog's age. Boredom, the desire for desires. Leo Tolstoy. The love of place and precedency. It rocks us in our cradles, and it lies down with us in our graves. John Donne. All right. Okay. The chapters are very, they're like little just bites, you know. 21 August 1930. Her Royal Highness the Duchess of York gave birth to a daughter this evening. Both Her Royal Highness and the infant princess are making very satisfactory progress. 31 October 1955. I would like it to be known that I have decided not to marry Group Captain Peter Townsend. I have been aware that, subject to my renouncing my rights of succession, it might have been possible for me to contract a civil marriage, but mindful of the Church's teachings that Christian marriage is indissoluble, and conscious of my duty to the Commonwealth, I have resolved to put these considerations before others. I have reached this decision entirely alone, and in doing so I have been strengthened by the unfailing support and devotion of Group Captain Townsend. I am deeply grateful for the concern of all those who have constantly prayed for my happiness. Oh, and that was the beginning of the end, wasn't it? 21 May 1958. The press secretary to the Queen is authorized to say that the report in the Tribune de Genève concerning a possible engagement between Princess Margaret and Group Captain Peter Townsend is entirely untrue. Her Royal Highness's statement of 1955 remains unaltered. February 26, 1960. It is with the greatest pleasure that Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, announces the betrothal of her beloved daughter, the Princess Margaret, to Mr. Anthony Charles Robert Armstrong Jones, son of Mr. R.O.L. Armstrong Jones, Q.C., and the Countess of Ross, to which union the Queen has gladly given her consent. 19 March 1976. H.R.H. the Princess Margaret, Countess of Snowdon, and the Earl of Snowdon have mutually agreed to live apart. The Princess will carry out her public duties and functions unaccompanied by Lord Snowdon. There are no plans for divorce proceedings. 10 May 1978. Her Royal Highness, the Princess Margaret, Countess of Snowdon, and the Earl of Snowdon, after 2 years of separation, have agreed that their marriage should formally be ended. Accordingly, Her Royal Highness will start the necessary legal proceedings. 9 February 2002. The Queen, with great sadness, has asked for the following announcement to be made immediately. Her beloved sister, Princess Margaret, died peacefully in her sleep this morning at 6:30 in the King Edward the 7th Hospital. Her children, Lord Linley and Lady Sarah Chatto, were at her side. Princess Margaret suffered a further stroke yesterday afternoon. She developed cardiac problems during the night and was taken from Kensington Palace to the King Edward VII Hospital at 2:30 a.m. Lord Linleigh and Lady Sarah were with her, and the Queen was kept fully informed throughout the night. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and other members of the royal family are being informed. For immediate release, Monday, 10 April 2006, London. Christie's announces that jewelry and works of art from the collection of Her Royal Highness, the Princess Margaret, Countess of Snowdon, will be sold in April on 13 and 14 June 2006. This important and unparalleled historic sale will celebrate and pay tribute to Princess Margaret's renowned beauty, style, and taste. Comprising over 800 items, with estimates ranging from under £100 to over £500,000, the auction will feature a superb collection of jewelry and Fabergé, as well as a broad range of furniture, silver, works of art, and decorative objects. All right, so we're going to stop there because I said it's first chapters. This is tough. Let me tell you, sometimes I just really want to keep going, but I can't. All right, I'll stick back there. A Voyage Around the Queen. This is by the same author as that one, so it may very well be written in the same, kind of quick little bite-sized chapters, which honestly wouldn't be so... Oh dear. Did I really say one chapter? Because this one is literally not even a paragraph. It's 3 sentences. Chapter 1. The London Gazette, 21 April 1926. Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of York, was safely delivered of a princess at 17 Bruton Street, Mayfair. His Royal Highness, the Duke of York, and the Countess of Strathmore were present. Secretary William Johnson Hicks was also present. Her Royal Highness and the infant princess are doing perfectly well. The happy event was made known by the firing of the Park and Tower guns. Okay. I said one chapter only. So I have to be true to my word. As horrible as it is. All right, let's read the first chapter of Mrs. Dizzy. It's about their love story, I guess, Disraeli and his wife. Apparently, it was quite scandalous. All right, chapter 1, Little Wizzy. Let me see how long these chapters are. Not very long at all. Okay. So this is eventually the wife of Benjamin Disraeli. It was only right and proper that Marianne, who was to be so lively and so lovely, should have been born in one of the liveliest of English cities, in the heart of one of its loveliest counties, Devon. Exeter, in 1792, was still largely a medieval city, a place of leaning old houses, Tudor gables, a handsome cathedral with graceful precinct dwellings, a famous coffee house, and numerous winding alleys and steep flights of steps. Side note, speaking of Exeter, if you ever get the chance to watch Under the Greenwood Tree or I have a love-hate relationship with Thomas Hardy because the man can't give you a happy ending to save his life. It's like he always has to have either it's like out and out sad. Tess of the D'Urbervilles, it ends sadly, but then there's hope. There's also hope. But I actually prefer the movie Under the Greenwood Tree to the book, because in the book there's a little bit of but in the film it's just yay. Okay, find Under the Greenwood Tree. It has to be one of my most favoritist movies of all time. And anyway, it just reminded me because they're always making a big deal that she's been to Exeter. And yes. So okay, let's continue. Handsome cathedral with graceful and steep flights of steps. It was even appropriate in its strongly royalist politics for the future wife of the greatest of Tory leaders. Always strong for king and church, it had fought Cromwell with underground plots, and Exeter's own General Monk had been largely responsible for bringing back the exiled Charles II to be welcomed and feted in an Exeter bright with garlands and banners, and merry with wine-flowing fountains. Mary Ann would have enjoyed the scene hugely, as no doubt her ancestors did. In the year of her birth, England was on the verge of war with France. The French Revolution was at its height. France's king and queen, Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, were awaiting the guillotine. England was full of unrest and fear. The Devon folk, who had been supplying men to the Royal Navy for so many centuries, knew that sons, fathers, and brothers would soon be at sea. But on 11 November 1792, Exeter was quiet enough, and on that day Mary Ann made her first appearance. She was christened 3 days later in St. Sidwell's Church as Mary Ann, daughter of John and Eleanor Evans. Her birth may have taken place in the St. Sidwell's district beyond the East Gate, devastated by bombs in 1942, and now completely rebuilt, or she may have been born in a farmhouse at Bramford-Speke, a village a few miles north of Exeter. Her father was a native of Bramford-Speke. Is it Speke or Speke? I don't know. Where his family had farmed for generations. But he had chosen the Royal Navy as his life. Born in 1760, he had joined HMS Alarm as captain's servant in 1771. The year in which the 12-year-old Nelson shipped on the Raisonnable as a midshipman. Had he lived, his career might well have paralleled Nelson's in more than youthful enlistment, for he rose to the rank of lieutenant when he was only 21. Nelson had been 19. In 1788, he felt secure enough to marry, and chose Eleanor Vinny, a well-connected young lady descended from Wiltshire landowners. Her father had been the Reverend James Vinny, vicar of Bishopstrow, Wiltshire, and she brought her husband a considerable fortune in those days, no less than £5,300, with a promise contained in the deed of settlement that she hath great expectations of being possessed of considerable fortune from her aunt, Mary Ann Vinny, of the city of Gloucester, and otherwise. No portraits of Mary Ann's parents are known to survive. A young man in naval uniform, a young woman becomingly capped, they may hang unrecognized in some Exeter house or antique shop. It was Mary Ann's habit to keep everything remotely connected with herself, her family, and her friends, which makes their lack remarkable. But among her papers are letters which provide a glimpse of her parents' courtship, and suggest that she may have inherited her vivacity from her exuberant, voluble father. In 1786, he writes from Gosport to Miss Vinny, at Charlwood House near Plimpton, facetiously ordering her to have her portrait painted. You profess much vanity, no doubt, but pray give me leave to figure to myself the pleasing sense of admiring you under all forms and at every point of view. I am the best judge of your deformity, and will keep you totally in my own opinion. Therefore, as your picture will gratify me when the original is beyond my view, it is my particular command that it shall be done. Does this look like beginning to show my lordly authority? They're being so flirty. Oh yes, I find I shall improve rapidly under my teacher, P-N. I hate it when they do that. Like, they always do this in old letters and old books. Like, they anonymize. In the act of wife, obey your husband, otherwise called good husbandry. Oh, he's funny. So you presume to think that you will keep the hut vastly neat. Be careful, madam. Let rash promises bring on severe correction. The style of speaking seems to sit very easy on me. Do you suppose you are strong enough to bear it? Oh, no, fear not. I have other languages for Nora, she whose tender bosom fondly moves to make me happy. Shall I not, O heaven-born sympathy, devote my hours, my life, my soul to cherish, serve that dear girl where all my future joys are centered? Nora, You found me truly in the rough, and it is your business to bend, burnish, and shape me to whatever form will make you most happy. And if you are not completely, 'twill be your own fault. Adieu, eternally and affectionately. I am Eleanor Vinnie's John Evans. In another letter, he looks forward to the happy moment when I hold my adorable wife in these fond arms. My good little housewife will have ready all the receipts for her husband to mix. His premarital dictates have a flavor of Mirabelle's to Millimont in William Congreve, The Way of the World. Okay. You are, Nora, perfect clockwork. Do you think, you little hussy, I will allow you to be so regular when I am your acknowledged master? Do you imagine I will go to bed at 10 and rise at 7? Don't mistake me. I am grown quite a drone. Beside, it is in bed the moments fly, and I almost wish to pass my time totally in bed till we meet. But peradventure, the temper of my body as well as my mind will alter after a little matrimonial balsam. A quick mastery would greatly add to my happiness, and you are very sensible that was it in my power to fold you in these longing arms before the time appointed, I would, but that cannot be. We must patiently wait till our money matters are in better order. Oh my goodness, he wants to take her to bed. La gasp. In this economy? A lottery ticket was evidently intended to be the foundation of John's fortunes. But on 28 March 1787, he writes, At length, Nora, all my dreams and expectations are vanished. My ticket is drawn, a blank. Therefore, no more faith in dreams. They are not from heaven. They are only founded upon the sleeping fancy of some subtle, tantalizing demon. Oh, that you could hear me gently murmuring on your bosom. But we shall soon, I hope, clasp each other, never to part again. To this courtship period, perhaps, belongs a very long song with music by Miss Bridget Vinnie, with an equally long chorus. Blush not, turn not in confusion, kindly to my vows attend. Let love plead for this intrusion. Who can love and yet offend? Love more sweetly yields confession, glows the cheek, illumes the eye, glances own the fond impression, blushes paint the kind reply. I'm loving this. I don't know, it might be boring to some of you, but I'm having a thrill. Okay. Because it's so Jane Austen, you know? Like, it's so Jane Austen. In later years, Marianne told people that her parents made a runaway match. It may have been so, for neither Evanses nor Vinnies appear in the list of witnesses to the ceremony in St. Charles's Church, Plymouth. But at the same time and before the same altar, Eleanor's twin sister, Bridget, was joined in matrimony to John Evans's friend, Thomas Munn, a lieutenant in the East India Service. It seems highly improbable that both couples should have eloped, and even more so that a runaway bride should have brought with her such a handsome deed of settlement, drawn up beforehand. Marianne was somewhat given to romancing about her origins and youth, possibly prompted by her highly individual sense of fun. Indeed, it may well have been Marianne herself who started a rumor that she began life as a factory girl. Okay, hold on. I'm in the weeds here. Let me see. Okay, I get it. So they were just talking about Marianne's parents, and now they've gone back to Marianne, because I was like, wait, who am I talking about? The newlyweds made their home in St. Sidwell's. It was convenient for John's journeys to London or Plymouth, and for visits to his parents in Brantford Speke. Their first child was born on 10 February 1790, a boy who was christened James at the village church. On 21 March, John and Eleanor carried him there again, for his burial. Here another mystery arises, for Mary Ann grew up with a living brother, John Vinnie Evans, whose name appears in army lists as both John and James. The discrepancy is is probably explained by the fact that a child would often be given the name of one previously dead. That's true. It's like replacement. John, born 12 April 1791, was perhaps given the unofficial name of James as well, though John alone appears on his certificate of baptism, and John was the name by which his sister called him. In the year after John's birth, Eleanor bore a daughter, who was probably called after her great-aunt, Mary Ann Viney, as James had been called after his uncle, Captain James Viney. Soon after her appearance, John Evans was promoted to first lieutenant, and in January 1793 he was commissioned to HMS Ceres, a fifth rate of 32 guns. What appeared to be a fortunate promotion turned out to be the reverse. Ceres sailed for the West Indies to join John Jervis, later Earl St. Vincent, in his expedition against the French West Indies. During the voyage, there was such a severe outbreak of malignant fever that the ship was ordered to Bermuda in an attempt to save her men. John, who died on 17 April 1794, was probably a victim of the fever, and there is no evidence that he was killed, on active service. Oh no. The young widow, left alone with her 2-year-old son and baby daughter, appears to have moved to the home of her husband's parents in Brampton Spick. Old Mr. Evans owned or rented the farms of Sodens and Moors, in one of which he, his wife, and widow daughter lived. Among the Disraeli papers is a print of a thatched house, probably Sodens, now rebuilt, with a long garden ending in a ha-ha. I don't know what a ha-ha is, but if you know, you can tell me. The inscription on the print reads, "Where Mary Ann was born," and is accompanied by a wisp of soft brown hair from her head, cut when a child, 1793. Oh, that just fills my heart with warmth because I just love that. 1793, and people are still clipping a little baby's ringlet to keep as a memento. People have always been people, Apart from the new face of Sodens, Mary Ann would find little change in her birthplace today. After the noise of modern Exeter, largely rebuilt since the destruction that came upon it from the air in 1942, it is strange to come to a little village almost untouched by the passing of 2 centuries. The surrounding countryside is green, lush, and hilly, with a soft, sensuous look of rural Devon. The sturdy church, the cottages, and farmlands are much as Mary Ann knew them. Even the village inn has escaped modernization, remaining a little alehouse of the kind George Morland painted for the price of a pint. The churchyard in which little James Evans lies is peaceful and pretty. No trace of Mary Ann remains at Bramford's Beck, just as no record of her childhood appears among her papers, other than a letter written to her mother, perhaps when Mrs. Evans was visiting relations. "My dear Mamma, our school is broke up, and I am very comfortable with 3 pleasant companions with whom and my brother I shall spend the holidays, very agreeable. He unites with me in duty to you and all kind friends, and in wishing they may enjoy the pleasures of the season. I am, my dear Mamma, your dutiful daughter, Mary Ann Evans." In spite of her fatherless state, Mary Ann's childhood was certainly very agreeable. As a woman, she wore that sunny confidence which is the heritage of the child who has never had reason to mistrust its elders, even admitting with cheerful complacency that nobody in her life had ever crossed her. There was a great family affection between the 3 Evanses. In their letters, Eleanor is always "my darling Mamma," or "my dearest Mamma," and Mary Ann's pet name is "Little Wizzy," or Tiddy, a bestowal which evokes more vividly than description the merry little girl whose high spirits sometimes subjected her to the disapproval of her rather pious young brother. A gay little spinning top, she flashed and whirled with an affectation of feather-headedness which concealed a shrewd brain and a warm heart. Perhaps she picked up the local Devon burr, and it clung to her sweet voice for life, her accent later causing as many raised eyebrows in London society as her provocatively frank speech. Queen Victoria, entertaining her to dinner for the first time, was to remark that she is very vulgar, not so much in her appearance as in her way of speaking, a way which, we may be sure, Mary Ann exaggerated in the cause of amusing people or shocking them. But her beauty, which caused her lovers to compare her to a fairy, can never have been of the red-cheeked rustic kind, nourished though it was by the fresh Devon air. At Bramford's Beck, She played, galloped through the meadows, learned to read and write as fluently as she talked, and in as dashing a style. Her spelling was perfect, but her handwriting must have been the despair of her teachers. Every attempt of theirs to force her into the fashionable copper-plate script was useless. To the end of her life, she wrote an execrable scribble of heavily slanting black downstrokes and faint upstrokes, more like hieroglyphs than handwriting. Her contemporaries, used to their own and other people's small, clear letters, must have found it baffling, though most of her correspondents were too polite to say so. Only her cousin Walsh Porter was frank enough to tell her, "I cannot read some of the hieroglyphics in your letter. If there is any merit in writing illegibly, you shine." And later, "I should not care what colored paper you wrote on, so that I could read the contents. I should not care what colored paper you wrote on, so that I could read the contents, but I cannot." There must have been many visits to Exeter from Mary Ann, shopping expeditions with her mother, riding to market with her grandfather, playing with John in the old pleasure ground of Northern Hay, watching the hands of the clock at St. Mary Steps Church creeping up to the hour, with the 3 mechanical figures called by Exeter folk the miller and his sons, would come out and strike. The sailors' children would stop to gaze at the Ship Inn, where Drake used to drink, and wander on the wander on the quay. It's not pronounced quay, it's quay. And wander on the quay, watching the boats come up to the Exe to unload at the fine customs house. Under firm escort by servants, they might go to a fair in the Crawlditch, or to the great Lammas Fair, which was Exeter's annual revel, to ride on hobby horses and watch the Punch and Judy, and the traveling actors ranting out melodrama, acrobats dancing on tightropes, and pathetic molting bears lurching clumsily to the scraping of a fiddle. Then, happily tired, back to Brampton Speke, laden with fairings, a doll and ribbons and trinkets for Mary Ann, a tin soldier and a lambskin made of plaster and wool, exactly like Grandpapa's lambs, for John. There was always plenty of money to spend, and plenty of fun to be had. The widowed lady, who had been Lieutenant Evans' dear Nora, was deeply religious, but far from narrow-minded, and the years were the pleasant ones before Georgian freedom gave way to Victorian sobriety. Mary Ann's early years were blessedly uneventful. A happy childhood, like a happy marriage, does not make history, but the latter truism Mary Ann was by her life triumphantly to refute, not once, but twice over. I like. Okay. Let's find places to stick these. Okay. Now, what is next? Okay, so we have Prince Charles biography. We have this one. This one, Tupac. Tupac's kind of a strange one to put in here, so I probably won't. Oh, this is a huge one of Mountbatten, but I think it's all like his military stuff. And it's the official biography. So I just wonder. Oof. I mean, this has a lot of military stuff in it. I don't think I can hack it. This is Elizabeth and Philip, but I found that it was very saccharine. It was like, oh, they were so in love. Their marriage was great. I was like, okay, I don't buy it. Okay, Prince Charles. Oh, let's try it. If it's really boring, I'm not going to read the whole chapter because I've read so much about... preface is really long. All right, let's try it. Let's see what happens. Chapter 1, The Lonely Schoolboy. Before the stroke of midnight on November 14, 1948, Prince Charles Philip Arthur George officially became public property. While his 22-year-old mother, Princess Elizabeth, rested in her bedroom suite in Buckingham Palace, her newborn heir was brought to the vast gilded ballroom by the royal midwife, Sister Helen Rowe, a seasoned practitioner with the sharp features of a seabird. A vision from an earlier century, the midwife wore a dark uniform, white pinafore, white wimple, and white gloves. Under the 46-foot-high ceilings, juxtaposed with a massive throne canopy draped with red and gold embroidered velvet, the 7-pound, 6-ounce infant was swaddled in white blankets and placed in a simple cot for viewing by the royal courtiers who served his grandfather, King George VI, and grandmother, Queen Elizabeth. "Just a plasticine head," observed Major Thomas Harvey, the Queen's private secretary. "Poor little chap. 2.5 hours after being born, he was being looked at by outsiders, but with great affection and goodwill." His parents would celebrate their first anniversary 6 days later. The dewy princess, with the wide smile and hourglass figure, and her 27-year-old husband with perfectly chiseled features. The wedding of Prince Philip of Greece to his third cousin Elizabeth, the heiress presumptive to the British throne, had given what Winston Churchill called a flash of color to bleak post-war London on November 20, 1947. After the end of World War II, the Labour Party had won control of Parliament in 1945, ousting Churchill and installing Clement Attlee, a socialist determined to create a welfare state. The royal nuptials had been a welcome distraction for Britons who had been suffering food rationing and fuel shortages. Now there was cause for celebration again, as crowds cheered and sang for hours outside the palace railings, shouting "Dad" and "Granddad," neither of whom appeared. Charles was hemmed in by high expectations and scrutiny from the start, unlike his mother, who had 10 relatively carefree years of childhood. Her parents, the Duke and Duchess of York, did undertake some official travel. But as the second son of George V, Elizabeth's father benefited from the absence of pressure and the relentless drumbeat of duty and daily obligations that mark an heir's life. It was only when he took the throne in 1936, on the abdication of his older brother, King Edward VIII, that 10-year-old Princess Elizabeth assumed her position as next in line and began to feel the weight of her future responsibilities. On December 15, 1948, 4-week-old Charles was christened beneath the ornate dome of the music room at Buckingham Palace, surrounded by his family and 8 godparents, an impressive lineup that included the king, maternal great-grandmother Queen Mary, and paternal great-grandmother, the Dowager Marchioness of Milford Haven. This always baffles me. I'm like, why would you make a godparent, like, when that's the grandparent? Like, I don't get it, but anyway, I'm not Anglican, so what do I know? He was known as His Royal Highness Prince Charles of Edinburgh. At age 3, on his mother's ascension to the throne in 1952, he would become Prince Charles of the House of Windsor and acquire 6 of his 8 hereditary titles: the Duke of Cornwall, the Duke of Rothesay, the Earl of Carrick, the Baron of Renfrew, the Lord of the Isles, and the Prince and the Great Steward of Scotland. With the exception of the Duke of Cornwall, which had its own income-producing trust fund, the others were centuries-old honorifics. Only the Duke of Cornwall would come with any specific responsibilities. Benefiting a future king, the Archbishop of Canterbury doused the little prince with water from the River Jordan that had been poured into the gold lily font designed by Prince Albert and used for all of his and Queen Victoria's children. Delighted with her firstborn, Elizabeth breastfed him for 2 months until she contracted measles and was forced to stop. Yet she was often away from Charles in his infancy, spending as much time as she could with Philip, an officer in the Royal Navy who was posted to Malta in October 1949. She managed to celebrate her son's first birthday, but afterwards she was abroad, and apart from her son for long intervals. In August 1950, Elizabeth gave birth to her second child, Princess Anne, and returned to Malta after Charles turned 2 in November 1950. By the middle of the following year, both Elizabeth and Philip were back in London to help the king, who had fallen seriously ill with lung cancer. The family of 4 lived at Clarence House, bordering on Green Park. The young princess was increasingly occupied with royal duties, and the pattern of Charles's childhood was set. When the prince hit bottom after a separation from Diana in 1992, he unburdened himself about the miseries of his youth to Jonathan Dimbleby, who was writing an authorized biography. As a little boy, Charles was easily cowed by the forceful personality of his father, whose rebukes for a deficiency in behavior or attitude easily drew tears. Philip was brusque and well-meaning but unimaginative. Friends who spoke with Charles's permission described the Duke's belittling and even bullying his son in a rough way. Charles was less harsh about his mother, but his opinion had a bitter edge. She was not indifferent so much as detached. On reading these descriptions when the biography appeared, the Queen and Prince Philip were wounded, to say the least. Charles's siblings, Anne especially, sprang to their parents' defense. The suggestion that Elizabeth wasn't caring just beggars belief, said Anne. It was Charles's perception, said a senior advisor to the Queen at the time. But the idea that the Queen was a bad parent is nonsense. Philip is very good with children, said his cousin Patricia, the eldest daughter of Philip's uncle Louis Dickey Mountbatten, the first Earl Mountbatten of Burma, and his alluring wife Edwina. It is quite untrue that he didn't care. He was trying to help Charles develop character in his life, knowing the life he was going to have to lead. Nearly 2 decades later, in 2012, Charles tried to make amends in a TV documentary tribute to the Queen on her Diamond Jubilee. Home movies depicted an idyllic childhood at the family's country estates in Sandringham in Norfolk and Balmoral in Scotland. Footage of Prince Philip teetering on a tricycle and zooming down a slide on the Royal Yacht Britannia contradicted his reputation as a tetchy martinet. And scenes of the Queen romping with her children were meant to dispel the notion of her being distant and unaffectionate. Prince Philip scarcely knew his son for the first 2 years of the boy's life, but on his return from overseas duty, he did take the time to teach Charles to shoot and fish, and to swim in the Buckingham Palace pool. Years later, at a charity dinner, Charles paid a fond tribute to his father by reciting an excerpt from The Song of Hiawatha, with its secrets of animals in the wild that Philip had read to him as a child. From an early age, Charles had a preternatural aesthetic sense that resonated with the unforgettable sing-song rhymes of the Longfellow poem, the magic of the trochaic tetrameter, as he once explained to a group of rapt English teachers. Exploring Windsor Castle, he found all sorts of fascinating places to exercise his imagination. He loved Van Dyck's portrait of Charles I in 3 positions. King Charles lived for me in that room in the castle, he later wrote. He was intrigued by jewelry in the portraits of his great-great-grandmother, Queen Alexandra, who really did go to town, he said, with her long, crisscross ropes of pearls. Visiting his Mountbatten cousins at Broadlands, their Hampshire estate, he would admire his great-aunt Edwina's hats, calling them lovely. Not many 7-year-olds would say that, noted his cousin Lady Pamela Hicks. Among the great-grandchildren of the formidable Queen Mary, only Charles was permitted to touch the precious collection of jade objects his Gangan kept locked in the cabinets. Okay. I mean, I don't mind it. It's Prince Charles by Sally Bedell Smith. Like I said, I don't hate it. I'm not desperate to continue reading it, but if you're interested, I would keep reading it. It does look like it gives a lot of context and a lot of little stories that we probably haven't heard. Okay. Next is Alex and Nikki, The Passion of the Last Tsar and Tsarina. There are so many names. Oh my Lord. And of course they're Russian. Oh dear. No, I'm sorry. I can't do that. I can't do that right now, but I will do it another time. What else do I have here? You know what? Go on then. Let's read the first chapter of this, just to make up for what I'm not doing. Okay, chapter 1, Early Days. In the beginning, who could have known? Certainly not me. When I was a little girl growing up in a warm, happy household in the stockbroker belt near Maidenhead, I dreamed of handsome princes and ivory towers, but then they were only dreams. As a baby, I had a mass of dark curls, wide brown eyes, and a smile that won me first prize at a local baby show when I was just 12 months old. My father called me his little princess and absolutely doted on me, even when I was naughty. I could do no wrong. I can tell. I can already tell. But life is full of surprises, and mine started early. The first unexpected thing that happened to me was actually on the day I was born. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Uh-oh. Oh, this goes dark very quickly. The first unexpected thing that happened was the day I was born. Not so much when that was expected, but where. My mother, Irene Lamont Black, the wife of a wealthy businessman, was desperate to have me at home. But on a September day in 1958, her own mother died. The shock of it so distressed Mummy that 2 weeks later, on 14 September, the birth pangs started, and she was rushed to the local Red Hill Hospital, where I came into the world at 3 a.m. I was a month premature and a forceps delivery, quite a small baby, weighing just 6 pounds, but healthy, bubbly, and cheerful. Okay, phew. I mean, I'm not happy that her grandmother died, but when I just glanced down, I thought she was saying that her mother died in childbirth, because I was like, oh no. I'm told that I gurgled a lot in my cot, but I hardly ever cried. My parents were delighted to have a daughter. Daddy, who was chairman of a catering firm, already had a son by his first marriage. It had all been planned for weeks and weeks. The nursery was ready, with bright new wallpaper full of colorful flowers and animals. My mother was terribly excited because I was her very first baby. Granny went into hospital in Crawley, Sussex, to have a routine operation on her gallbladder, but what no one realized was that she was allergic to general anesthetic. It was so routine that no one even bothered to go in with her when she was admitted. She insisted, "Don't bother, I'll be all right." And she was an indomitable old lady. And the last thing she wanted was a lot of fuss. My mother was Daddy's second wife. He hails from Scotland. Alan Vetch Lamont Black was proud to boast of his own clan, and of our own tartan in green, cream, and brown, with the emblem of an open right hand in a wreath, and the family motto, "Neither spear nor dispose." In the end, they got divorced, and Daddy went on to marry again. As I grew up, I came to realize what a child he was at heart, like a little boy who constantly needed reassuring and mothering. Oh, that sounds delightful. He had had a bad first marriage, which ended in blazing rows and shouting matches. I was very hurt from it, but while Mummy was strong-willed, she instinctively knew his weaknesses and was able to be the wife he wanted. He was very much in love with her. As a result, her own childhood was normal. My own childhood was normal, loving and secure. I also saw for myself how a woman of strong character could attract a weak man, yet be happy enough to make a life together. What? What? Did she just call her father a weak man? Oh, the shade. It was something I would experience at first hand for myself years later. My mother's maiden name was Hamker, of German origin, and she was wealthy in her own right before they met. She owned her own restaurant and ran a dancing school before joining my father's catering company based in Richmond, Surrey, which specialized in foreign foods. It had been founded by his father, Alan, who had revolutionized the freezing process, making a fortune for the family. Mummy swiftly made her own mark, rising through the departments to become a regional manager. That was how she met the boss, fell in love with him, and married him. I was the apple of my father's eye, a cherubic little thing who seemed to find the world a funny old place, even from the start, because I was always chuckling away happily in my cot. Well, that's what they told me later. My mother also told me it was my smile that gained me first prize in Hanworth baby show at the age of 1. Daddy had always wanted a daughter, and I was a real cutie. He adored me so much that he took me everywhere, to company parties, to sports meetings and cricket matches, showing me off to his friends and business colleagues as if I were the most precious thing in the world, and to him, I think I really was. The marriage fell apart 4 years after I was born. I couldn't see that coming. My grandfather died in a sailing accident in a dreadful storm, off the coast, in a race off the coast. Hi, baby. In a race off the coast of Cornwall. My grandmother was so upset, poor lady, that she passed away 2 months later. It was really so strange. 8 weeks previously, she had been a fit, healthy woman, but after that terrible day, she just didn't want to go on anymore. They had been immensely close, and without him, she just gave up living. It was so sad. The doctor came round to our house and told us, I have to put down the cause of death on the certificate as a heart attack, but unofficially I think she died of a broken heart. We believed it. I think it happens all the time with people who have lived close to one another all their lives. When one goes away, the other just fades away. But those twin deaths would break up our own family. Suddenly, my father came into a huge amount of money from the estate, and he wasn't mature enough to handle it. He sold his firm to a big conglomerate, and all at once he found himself with millions in the bank. I mean, millions. And that was in the 50s. That would be crazy, wouldn't it? He got himself a secretary named Ivy. He also got her pregnant. I love this book. Oh my God. He also got her pregnant. Ivy. Oh, she sounds like a little trollop, doesn't she? And Mummy didn't like that one little bit. No shit. Oh my God. She realized what was going on when she found a lipstick in my father's jacket pocket. He must have been very silly or just plain careless. She confronted him and he admitted it. He told her, yes, I've gone out with other women. She threw him out of the house. He promptly went off and married a secretary, and that started a whole financial hullabaloo, which of course I was too young to understand. I was told later that Daddy was moving his money around frantically from place to place to stop Mummy catching up with it. And there must have been some high old fun and games going on. There was a court case. She won custody and ended up with just £16 a week maintenance, even though he was a multi-millionaire. Well, she must have had her own money then, right? By that time, I also had a younger brother, Neil, who was adopted when my mother thought she could never have any more children, and a sister, Nicola, who was born a year later when Mummy found out she was wrong. What the chaos! Despite the fact that we had to watch the purse strings, our early family life was really happy, and we were a close-knit family. We moved from Maidenhead to West Green in Sussex, where I went first to West Green Junior School in Crawley, then to the Holy Trinity Church of England School. In Maidenhead, I had gone to an infant school, a private establishment for girls with only 25 pupils. We all wore striped blazers and flounced around in navy blue skirts and straw boaters with pink ribbons and little moppets out of a Hollywood musical. I've always said that I was a born leader. If anyone doubts it. Okay, first of all, let me say there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that you have leadership skills, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with, knowing your own strengths. It's just it's the context of the whole thing which I'm finding funny. I was a cute little button. Like she just sounds like a spoiled child to me. So that's why I'm having a laugh. Okay. I have always said that I was a born leader. If anyone doubts it, look what happened when I was just 3 years old. One morning, my mother got a frantic phone call from the headmistress to say that the whole school was missing. The distraught teacher was phoning around every parent to say, they've all gone. We don't know where they are. When we hear anything, we'll let you know. My mother later told me, funny, I had a feeling about it. And 10 minutes later, what did she see? A file of tiny schoolgirls, marching 2 by 2 in through the front gate and up the drive, with me in the lead. I'd said to them, line up, I'm taking you home for lunch. It was just awful, kidnapping an entire school. Well, unusual at least, but my mother was wonderful and rallied round at once. She rang the headmistress and told her, my daughters brought the whole school home. Don't worry, I've got them all here. I'm giving them beans on toast and sending them back. I was a proper little madam, a real bossy boots, even at that tender age. We'd crossed a main field, walked for at least 10 minutes in a neat crocodile, with me keeping them in line like a sergeant major. My mother didn't have the heart to tell me off, though the headmistress's attitude was slightly different. When we moved away, I rather think my infants teacher was quite happy to see me go. My first memory of life is one I wish I could blot out. I believe that very young children really do know what's going on with their parents, which is why you've got to be so careful how you behave in front of them. That's actually very true. But the first thing I can ever remember is my mother and father having a fight. It happened in the hall at the foot of the staircase of our house in Maidenhead, and they were screaming and yelling at each other, with Daddy grabbing Mummy by her sleeves and pulling her violently around. I was about 4 years old, and I remember getting between them, pushing myself between their legs with tears streaming down my face, pleading, "Mummy, Daddy, stop." Aww. They ended up cuddling each other and cuddling me too. After that, I seemed to become much more aware of what was going on around me. I felt my mother was being extra protective, probably because of the tensions building up between them. But we kids were happy enough, though I was the naughty one and frequently got into trouble. Our house was one of those large, attractive Tudor houses you find in stockbroker territory. I always seemed to have lived in big houses, and I never felt lost or afraid in them. This one had lots of rooms. It also had a big open coal fire in the living room. My mother warned me, don't ever touch the poker or go near the fire, understand? I understood, but that didn't necessarily mean obey. One day, when the room was empty, I picked up the cast iron poker and began prodding the red-hot coals. Of course, the poker became too hot, and I dropped it on the carpet. In my panic, I trod on it with my bare foot, and my screams filled the house. My parents ran from room to room trying to find me, and finally my father burst into the lounge, swept me up in his arms, and rushed me off to the hospital. I had a huge bandage on my foot for days, but at least both my parents were too relieved to scold me. At breakfast, I would always pile sugar on my porridge, and sometimes I'd go too far. No more sugar, my mother ordered, and I'd sneak another spoonful when I thought she wasn't looking. When I got caught, I'd have to stay indoors while Daddy took the other two to the sweet shop down the road to buy them penny chocolate bars, and I'd be left with my nose pressed to the window, forlornly watching them go hand in hand up the drive without me. If we were basically a normal, happy group of children growing up together, I still sensed that all was not quite right. Something seemed to be missing in the family, though I had no idea what it was. In the end, after only 5 years, it was my father. The wording. This is a hoot. I don't know if she just has a good sense of humor. She's either like very, very quick or she's wild. I don't know. Something was missing. Something seemed to be missing in the family, though I had no idea what it was. In the end, after only 5 years, it was my father. One day, he just went away and didn't come back. Oh yeah, one of those. He probably had to go pick up the Chinese food. Mummy called the three of us into the kitchen, sat us down, and told us gently, Daddy's had to go away for a while. I'm not sure when we'll see him again, but remember, he loves you and always will. In fact, she had thrown him out, and I wouldn't see my father again until I was 12 years old. Holy smokes. Strangely enough, that day, none of us cried when she broke the news. Another memory still haunts me, but in my dreams. One bright summer's day, the circus came to town, and there we were, hand in hand, with Daddy taking us across the village green for a surprise treat. In among the fairground barkers and noisy sideshows, we skipped and ran until we reached the big top. That's when I suddenly started screaming. I was suddenly faced with the sight of a huge teddy bear standing at the entrance of the big top. It scared me stiff when a voice rumbled through, "Hello, little girl." I just threw a fit of hysterics, yelling my head off, which rather startled the clown inside. Daddy bundled me up in his arms, apologized profusely to the bear, and hurried me past into the arena. From that day, I started having nightmares, one in particular, which is still recurring. I'm lying there on the bare floor of a loft, waking from a drowsy sleep, to find myself trapped in the dust and cobwebs, with dozens of teddy bears sitting around staring at me with their little, beady, hostile eyes. I still have that dream today. It ends with me trying to run away, but it's one of those dreams where you can't run. You always stay in the same place, however hard you try. And when I finally wake up, I often find the bed bouncing up and down on its springs because I've been struggling so hard to escape. I know I'm running away from something, but what? I suspect it's my inner feelings because I'm a very emotional person. And when I get involved with something, whether it is a person or a project, I give all of myself to it. In West Green, we lived in my granddad's house. My mother's father, John Hampshire, I don't know, was a cantankerous old man who had lost a leg and couldn't stand us boisterous kids running around. But the house was a rambling old cottage with a huge garden where we could play for hours and keep out of his way. As I grew older, I watched him become more and more frail and helpless. By the time I was 10, I was being woken up by my mother at 3 a.m. to help carry Granddad to his commode, as she wasn't strong enough to do it on her own. I'm sure he felt ashamed of his granddaughter seeing him in such a condition, but Mother refused to put him in a home, and somehow we looked after him until he died. At school, I was a loner. Not shy, just withdrawn. always in a world of my own, creating my own dreams and fantasies. I always felt remote from the other girls in my class, though academically I was judged to be extremely bright. Halfway through my term at West Green Junior School, my form mistress rang my mother and said, "Look, Leslie has a problem making friends. I think she should go to a psychiatrist." When we went along to a child psychiatrist in Crawley, and a very kind man sat me down at a long table and gave me lots of wooden squares and objects to work out and assemble. I kept thinking, what am I doing here? This is ridiculous. There were 2 other children in the same room, and when I got a chance, I whispered to them, "Why are you here?" The first one said, "I hate spiders." The other girl replied, "I hate snakes." They both asked me why I was there, and I could only answer, "I don't know. I quite like spiders, and I'm not afraid of snakes." At the end of the day, the psychiatrist invited us into his consulting room and said to my mother, "This child has no problem. She's just getting over losing her father. That's all it is. She's growing up and realizing there's a gap in her life. While other girls are talking about their fathers, Leslie hasn't got one, and she's feeling it." A month later, my father came back. Although he had behaved badly to my mother, Daddy had always been terribly hurt at not being able to see his children and being kept apart from us for so many years. But finally, my mother relented. Maybe that one session with the psychiatrist did the trick. And there on the doorway one autumn morning was my father. I remember a tall figure standing in the mist-shrouded garden, with the wet leaves all around his feet, and his arms stretched out to us as we hurled ourselves at him, all 3 of us, shouting, "Daddy, Daddy!" Somehow there was no holding back, no shyness, just a great feeling of joy and somehow relief that he was still part of our young lives, even if he wasn't living under the same roof. Whatever had gone on behind the scenes between them, Mummy had never said anything bad about him in our presence. He was still our dad. My life at school changed from that day. I made friends with other girls who are still my close chums even today. When I was moved to Holy Trinity Church of England School in nearby Gossip's Green at the age of 12, I had completely broken out of my trauma. I entered into everything I could and became captain of the school hockey team, the netball team, head girl of the monitors, and deputy head girl of the whole house. Holy Trinity was a mixed school, and I was a member of a gang, 26 of us. When we were around 16 years old, we would frequent a pub called the Lambs in nearby village of Rusper. There was a phone box outside, and one day someone suggested we should all try to get into it. With a lot of huffing, that's such an old thing to do. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen people do that in so long. I remember doing stuff like that in the early 2000s. How those times have flown. With a lot of huffing and puffing and squeezing, we managed 12, but after that, it became a challenge. Every Friday evening for months, we piled into that wretched box, but we never got more than 12 stuffed into it. I still see some of the gang, and we laugh over those mad evenings. I used to get up to all sorts of pranks, silly things, such as when I was a brownie, and put drawing pins on Brown Owl's chair just before she sat down. I got a severe ticking off for that. She just knew it had to be Leslie. They say school days are the happiest days of your life, and to some extent, I'd go along with that. I was totally in tune with my school, and I made the most of every day. 2 weeks before we were due to leave, with our A-levels behind us, I turned to my best friend, a girl called Zoe, and said, "You know, we're really going to regret leaving this place." She said, "Don't be so stupid. I can't wait to get away." "Think of it," I said. "We're protected. We have long holidays. We have fun. The real world is another planet somewhere out beyond the gates, and now we're going to have to join it." She scoffed at me. "You say such crazy things," but I knew I was right, and I was ahead of my time. Do you see what I mean? Please tell me that I am not alone in this. She really toots her own, she rings her own bell, doesn't she? Academically, I was no slouch either. Every year I won some award or another. Mathematics, religious education, home economics. My school reports bordered on the ecstatic. Headmaster Mr. David Enyon wrote, "Leslie's creative writing indicates she has a pleasing..." Oh, hold on. Hold on. I just have a note from my boss. Let me read it. Okay. So... Where were we? Yes, I was ahead of my time. Okay. Leslie's creative writing indicates she has a pleasing sensitivity to her environment. She is a very reliable, hard-working girl who always produces her best. Even though we had been reunited and I had become more adjusted, Daddy was hardly ever there. He would write to us and phone occasionally, but his visits were few and far between. Mother felt she had done enough by allowing him occasional access, but it was never like a real relationship that my other friends enjoyed. As I grew older, I noticed his absence more. They say fathers and daughters are very close, and mothers and sons, and that would have been true if only I'd had the chance to make it happen. The worst part was the end of term. Other girls would be rushing around excitedly on the last day, squealing, "My dad's come to take me out to dinner," or "We're going off shopping to buy me a new dress." I never had any of that. I thought, right, if I'm going to be left out like that, I'll show them. I set out to be the best at everything, where no one could hurt me inside. I had A's on all my reports. I'd go around the house spouting Shakespeare. I astounded my mother with my brilliance. The only other thing lacking was boyfriends. After I had taken my O-levels, I hung around the front door waiting for the postman to arrive the week the results were due out. I had taken 11 subjects. Finally, he came trudging up the garden path, and I opened the front door with my hand outstretched before he got there. My mother appeared, and I gave her the envelope. "Go on," I said. "You tell me." She opened it, and her eyes widened. 11 O-levels, she said. "Grade A in nearly every one. What can I say?" "How about well done?" I said, cheekily, with what I can only describe as a smirk of satisfaction. "I'm just so proud of you," she said. "We all are." For a fleeting moment, I longed for Daddy to be part of that all, and be there to tell me that he was proud of his little princess, too. 2 years later, I had gone on to pass 3 A-levels in home economics, biology, and English literature. After that, I started noticing boys. Oh, come on now. Get to the good stuff. I just want to know about her and what's his name. But anyway, hilarious. All right, thank you so much for being with me. I shall be with you, well, hopefully tomorrow. We'll see what happens. I have to text my new boss and find out what hours I'm in. All right, I will see you soon. Bye.